Hi, welcome to the living room. This video is going to be a do-over of yesterday's video about lone rats because it was brought to my attention that I sounded pretty stern and I was upset, and that can lead some people to feel like breeders might be inapproachable, and I don't want that to be the case. So I'm going to do the video again in a different tone, and hopefully it'll help bring some understanding to the situation. So there was a comment on Facebook that said that in response to a post where someone was asking about integrating a male rat, an older male rat, with new rats for the sake of not keeping him alone. And the comment said that it was impossible to introduce male rats to new male rats because they'll fight, and it recommended actually keeping the rat alone. This is the wrong advice, and the reason for that is because rats are extremely social creatures. In the wild, they live in colonies of really large numbers, and they socialize a lot, and they rely on each other for grooming and cuddling and sleeping together and security, just, like a group of humans do. Like in my last video, I want to bring it into the context of, imagine you were the only human somewhere and you were kept in a cage and nobody spoke your language and nobody knew how to hug you and nobody knew how to relate to you the way that other humans could, and you were just alone all the time. And then every once in a while a different creature of another species would come get you and play with you, but they don't know how to relate to you the same way that humans would. And they don't know how to cuddle you the way that a human would. It could get pretty depressing, and it sounds depressing. So, this is a lot what it's like for rats when they're alone. A lot of lone rats get depressed and even stop eating, and we want to avoid this happening big time. So I want to cover some introduction methods in detail and just give some guidance, because this is a really important issue for me. And I do get really passionate when I'm talking about rats and their care. I have a lot of emotion, and my emotions run pretty deep, so sometimes I get a little bit carried away. But this is a really important topic, and especially for newer owners who might not be aware, you really need to know about not keeping lone rats and about how to integrate new rats into your mischief. Sometimes rats are aggressive and they won't integrate, and that's really unfortunate. And in those cases, when you're completely unable to integrate a rat into a mischief, I'm gonna say it, and you're not gonna like it probably, because a lot of the pet community don't like this topic of euthanasia, but if you cannot, under any circumstances, integrate a rat into a mischief, it's worth considering euthanasia, because it's better than the possibility of keeping them in inhumane conditions. And the animals, they're not just here for our benefit, but we're supposed to be there for them too, right? We're their guardians, and it's up to us to set aside our feelings and our wants and desires and do what's right for them. And in this case, that is the right course of action if you cannot integrate a rat into a new mischief. But I want to talk about trying everything possible to do so before we give up. So stay tuned. When you're first starting out with introductions, you're going to want to start with a carrier like this, using the carrier method. Add some bedding to your carrier, and then add a bit of food. Then you can go get your rats and add them. Once the rats are in the carrier, close it up and let them sit for about 15 minutes if possible. In the event that the rats start to fight and you see aggression like biting, you should remove the rats. If you're worried about being injured, put a towel over top of the rats. Continue using the carrier method every day, several times a day, for at least a week before upgrading to a larger space that is neutral. Always ensure that your introductions take place in a neutral area where neither rat lives, so that there's not going to be any territorial issues. You can increase the duration of the carrier intros from 15 minutes at a time to half an hour, and then even up to an hour, but ensure that the rats have food and water while doing so. Once your rats have graduated from the carrier introduction and you feel like it's time to move on to a larger space, you can do so. Just ensure that it is a neutral area, as said. This is a bathtub with a towel laid down in the bottom so that the rats have traction. Add the rats to the bathtub and let them play. If they fight or you see aggression like puffing or side walking, crab walking, or biting, toss a towel on one of them. That worked really well. Toss a towel on top of the aggressive rat and grab them to remove them. You can also use a dustpan, a plastic dustpan, to separate them if necessary. The larger space intros can go for the same duration as other intros, but ensure that you're always supervising. When the rats are cuddling, it is the best sign that they are getting along. These rats don't want to cuddle though, they're too busy investigating. It may take a few weeks before you reach this level. However, eventually you should be able to integrate your rats into the same cage. Be sure to use fresh bedding and fresh hammocks. A nice clean cage is a great start for new rats. It's often easier to integrate younger males with older males when doing so. If there is ever aggression in your rats, such as biting or crab walking or puffing up of the fur, it might be worth separating them for a time so that they can calm down. Thank you for watching this video, and thank you for your time. One last note, because that seems to be my trademark with these videos. Shadow the Rat on YouTube is a really great source of information and has a great video on the carrier method of introduction, and I definitely recommend. Also, one last note, ideally speaking, when doing introductions and integration, you'll want to have a trio of rats rather than a pair. However, for manageability and the purpose of this video, I only use 2 rats.